Hello, everybody. I hope you are well. Today, I am joined with Harold. Harold and I have been connecting over several years, and oh, my computer's all shaking. And Harold has a phenomenal energy and phenomenal gifts. And so we've decided to start collaborating and doing a little bit of some lives together, and then we'll see where that progresses to. So I just thought that we'll do this as our first little video, and then either each week or each fortnight, or when we've got something, we're like, yeah, let's do this. We're going to jump on and we're going to do some lives and share some different perspectives and different techniques that you can use about situations that are currently taking place and that might be affecting you. There's obviously so much going on in the world at the moment, and without necessarily, we won't be discussing, the COVID or this or this or this, but we'll be discussing some of the sort of ways that we as humans and in our emotions, the way that we feel into those things, the way that those things impact us. And we'll start to have a little bit of a look at how different things going on in the world can be perceived differently, so that we can take a fresher look at them and move forward in a more confident and knowing and true way to us, as opposed to feeling some things that are going on can be really quite debilitating within us. So between us, Harold and I will hopefully bring some enlightenment into that space for you and create some shifts so that you can move forward with that beautiful flow as well in whichever area. So I'll just hand you over to Harold to say g'day.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? I'm really excited to be here, especially one of my best friends, Rebecca. And I know that what we're doing here, these conversations are so important for people in today's world. A lot of us are being tossed back and forth between different factions that have, gotten people in a frightened state. And a lot of people are in despair, and they're worried about what's going to happen next and what they might lose and where things might go from here. And so I feel like it's really crucial that we do our best to help people not only get a greater understanding of the bigger picture of what's going on and how they can survive and thrive through this time period, but also to help them really understand the tremendous and magnificent change that's occurring, and how they can put their fears to the side and begin to dissolve some of these mental prisons that have been placed around us, and instead become transformed themselves from the inside out and embrace the change that's coming, because it's going to be something that's for the good of humanity as a whole.
Awesome. Yay. How exciting is it? It's going to be so much fun, Harold. And it's going to be so much fun us working together and collaborating, bringing new ideas together, because I know every time we connect on the phone or through a Zoom or basically any time we connect, we're normally hooked in hours.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
there's
it's hard to
so
stop.
much. Yeah, it's just like, yeah. So and we feed off of each other so well. So I'm really excited about sharing this time with you and having this opportunity to do this with you. So thank you very much. And because that's one of the things, we are an energetic being. And we're one with this universe and with each person on it. So what we're feeling, what we're emitting, it's going to be felt by others and received by others. So if we're bringing ourselves into a space where we can see our power and the beauty that we hold in ourselves, the gifts that we hold in ourselves, of how much we can actually heal for ourselves, and how much we can shift things and create the life that we choose to experience and that is truest to us. And two, it's not about, I think so many people as well get on this idea that creating change or shifts or looking at energy or looking at the consciousness, it means you've got to start living this life of being a total saint, and you've got to be like really regimented and strict, and you've got to meditate every day, and you've got to do yoga, and you've got to be vegan, and you've got to be this, and you've got to be that. And it's just like, no, this really is about bringing you into your power to be you. So be that's a someone who works in politics, be that somebody who collects waste for the council, be that anyone in between, a teacher, a doctor, an energetic healer. No matter who you are, it's about finding your power and your truth for your life. And so, as well, just for everyone to know, this is definitely something that can be received by everybody, and it's not about certainly not about living a certain set of lives, a certain lifestyle. It's about just being you and embracing the most of you that you can whilst you're experiencing this lifetime. So it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited to see what comes through these. And for me too, as well, just to know, like, my intention sort of through sharing is to do that, is to allow people to see their own power, their own gifts, their own uniqueness. Because I know for me, I grew up definitely feeling like a bit of a different one. Certainly I had been called strange and weird on multiple occasions, and we're all different, you know, we're all so unique, and it's about embracing our uniquenesses and living those, you know, being those, and seeing too that we have that power to transform our lives, as Harold said, into whatever we choose, and our bodies to be in their best sort of working space. So yeah, that's super cool. So today we just sort of wanted to say hello, introduce ourselves, and let you know what we'll be doing. So did you want to share a little bit about some of the concepts we might be sharing, Harold, or what we might be doing?
Yeah, well, there's so many things to talk about, but uh, uh, some ideas that have been coming to me recently have been about basically helping people understand that we're in the process of creating something brand new for this planet, for humanity, um, and for the universe, basically. And instead of being so fearful and holding on to the past and seeing that kind of breaking down, just realize that everything is occurring in the way that it should. It's perfect as it is. And just like if you were to clean your house from top to bottom, it in the process, it may look like a complete disaster because you have to pull everything out. You have to pull up all the dirt and all the clutter to know what you need and what you don't need, and then start to separate the garbage from the things that you want to keep, and then reorganize it and put it all back together. And so we're in the middle of that mess right now. And what you see taking place in the world, there's a lot of disruption, but there are things that have been underneath the surface that are finally coming to a head, and they're erupting. And it's actually good because it's a cleansing process, and we need to clear some of these things out. And I definitely feel compassion for those who are suffering and whose lives are being affected in a negative way by a lot of what's going on. But in the total scheme of things, we're going through something that is important and something that will come out for the highest good of everyone in the end. So I just wanted to share that. And I know we'll be talking about things like that. And also, again, how to use this body, the space and energy around you for maximum success, for maximum health throughout life. There's so many topics that are just undiscussed, and we don't get it from school. You know, schooling is okay. You know, schooling is designed to walk you down a particular path to get you to a certain
No.
level of knowledge where, you know, you're able to do what the social norms have told you to do, basically. But there's so much knowledge that is far beyond that and far more useful than a lot of things that you'll pick up. Not, you know, putting any particular school down, but you already possess more knowledge than anything you can learn from textbooks. The answers are inside of you. And I remember watching an interview with one of those savants who could do amazing calculations and work out thousands of numbers in a row. And this guy was also pretty verbal. He was able to speak and interact with the interviewer. And the reporter said, well, how is it that you can make these huge calculations in just a couple of seconds? How do you figure that out? And the savant said, well, no, I don't figure it out. The answer already exists. I simply open my mind to a space where it can come in. And if you realize that you have that innate knowing inside of you, that all of the answers are already there, everything in the universe that ever has been, ever will be, is encoded in your DNA. It's like a holographic universe where each part contains the whole. So you are pure potential, and the potential of the entire universe is inside of you. So when we get to some of those more advanced topics, when you learn how to basically look inside and contact that voice of all knowing and get the answers that you seek, I know that Rebecca, she will do a lot to explain the step-by-step process of how to reconnect with your inner self and that voice of truth. When you do that, you realize that the universe is basically your library, and nothing that you seek is is um is kept from you, that you can get any answers that you want, and you can really begin to transform yourself and become much more than you ever thought, in so many ways, and also physically, as I want to take the time to cover as well.
And there is so much we can learn from ourselves. And I was saying to someone a while ago, it's sort of like if I came up to you and said, sing me the lyrics of all of this song, and it might be a popular song, and they'll be like, oh, I don't know. Or, tell me songs you know all the lyrics to, and it'd be like, oh, I don't know, I can't think. But when you've got the radio on, you could sing along to 1,000 songs and you know all of the lyrics. And it's just that sometimes we don't allow ourselves to see how much we already know. We might have those lyrics within us already. However, we don't let ourselves see that. We have that depth of knowledge, and it's just like we don't necessarily know how much we already know. So exploring ourselves and our own minds and uncovering some of the knowledge that we have inside ourselves already it's addictive. That's the only that's the only way I can explain it. It's addictive because you just sort of start to see, there's actually not much that we really need to question once we have a good understanding of ourselves. And it's definitely something I've found so much joy and so much clarity in my life. My health has changed dramatically through learning to understand myself and my thoughts. And I used to be that person that used to work 70 hours a week, and I'd do endless things outside of work, and I'd never make time for myself or for anything that was of any goodness for me. I'd never have 5 minutes to just be. I had to be busy all the time. I didn't, I can sit down on the beach now for hours on end and just watch the waves or the surfing or just the eagles or whatever's going on. We've got the whales going past at the moment, and I can just sit there for hours. And so many people are like, how can you, or staring at the stars, people are like, how can you do that? And it's like, well, for you might watch TV or listen to the radio or read a book. This is my relax, this is my chill time. But I used to watch people on the beach that would just be sitting there, and I'd just be like, how can they do that? How can they just sit there and do nothing? Like, I'd just be like, that must just be so boring. Like, you've got to be doing something. And for me, I'd only ever be at the beach if I was going for a dive, or if I was going snorkeling, or if there was a purpose behind it. It'd never be something where I'd just go and sit and be and enjoy. And two, because I'd be one of those people, I had so much going on in my mind, I didn't like having that quiet time because it was so overwhelming, and it was just like, oh, something's not good, like a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of doubts, a lot of questions, a lot of anger and frustration that I used to have inside of me. And so much of that led to my health declining dramatically. But when I learned to sort of process some of the thoughts that were going on, and I took that time to start to understand what some of those thoughts were, where they were coming from, their relevance, their importance, and their lack of importance in many occasions, and started taking that time for myself, I started to see that actually having this time, just being quiet, being still, can be so therapeutic and rewarding. And it had so much joy to your life, like,
Yeah,
and really
absolutely.
allows you to experience it. Because I found too, I was one of those people. I was the ultimate happy human. I was the happy stress head and the um, cheerful warrior. Like, I could be worried on the inside, but it's like, it's okay. I know it'll be fine. And it's just like, whatever, idiot. You're just trying to convince yourself of some crap, and you're putting a smile on your face. Ultimately, you're not facing the reality of what you're really feeling. You're trying to be happy. You're trying to push through this. You're trying to overcome it, and I wouldn't face the reality of what I was actually feeling so many times. And by starting to face the reality and the truth of what I was thinking, of what I was feeling, I started to really shift in myself. And because when we're denying negative feelings, it's really hard to also acknowledge positive feelings, because ultimately we're just turning our emotions off. We're turning ourselves off to feeling, to being ourselves. And so when you learn that you can actually take on and handle those negative thoughts and those negative feelings, you start to then really embrace and enjoy the good ones as well, and the joy and the love and the laughter, and you can embrace them also. So it's super cool.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of like everything you just said, because for one, when we talk about people who have come into your space and are mentioning different techniques and modalities, of course, I experienced that too. And everyone has this technique or this method or this understanding. And what I've learned is that it's really dangerous sometimes to label things,
Oh gosh, yes.
because when you label something, for one, you separate it from yourself. So you make
Yeah,
it some external thing, and then you define it. So the label becomes a limit, because it creates a boundary between what is or isn't this. And
yeah,
when you realize and start to understand things of a more spiritual nature, you start to get the fact that, I was doing energy before I knew what energy work was.
yeah,
I was allowing in the voice of my true self and intuition before I even knew what that was. And I was making use of all these abilities before I had a name or a label for them. It was just spontaneous, and it was maybe on rarer occasion.
yeah.
But there were a lot of things that I used to do as a regular part of my life that I didn't even realize that there was something phenomenal about it. But as a child, you grow up and you just are tuned in, you're connected, and you know how to use these things, intuitively, without anyone ever teaching you. But then what I went through was very similar to what you were saying, because at a certain age, I realized that no one really appreciated um, these 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 abilities and these ways of seeing the world that I had. So I was also always the weird kid. I was the one who always saw things in a way and said things in a way and talked about things that no one else thought about, that no one else
Yeah.
cared about. Even when it came to my teachers in school, which of course made them really mad, that they would ask me questions and I would ask them better questions. I would come up with, you know, I would give an answer. And many times I would know the answer they were looking for, but I'd also know better answers. And I would
Yeah.
give them the choice. I'd say, look, I know that this is what you want to know, but it actually doesn't work that way. This is how, and I would start explaining things and talking about how the textbooks were all backwards. And that got me in lot of trouble. So I eventually figured out that, well, people don't really appreciate this energy that I bring. And
They
so,
just want to stay in their little box
yeah,
because it's safe and it's what
yeah.
everyone else is in, and then they know they're, yeah,
Yeah.
that
And
well,
so in my
safe.
teenage years, when I became a teenager, okay, I wanted all the things that everybody else wanted. I wanted girls to like me. I wanted, to be popular and all of this. And so I decided to kind of push my intuition to the back burner
Yeah,
and really try to strive and accomplish things in the mainstream world. And so I got into sports. I've always been athletic, and I excelled at sports. And I wanted to be a jock, and I figured I'd be popular, and get lots of girls to talk to me, and eventually maybe I could make money at it. And I did. I turned professional, and I was, um, traveling the world and doing these things. But it was that period of time, like you talked about, where it was just distraction. I was just running, 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 and never wanting to get quiet, never wanting to just sit with myself, not feeling able to really.
Yeah.
I would feel terribly uncomfortable if I ever just sat in that silence, because then all the voices and all the doubts and all the beliefs started coming back. The ones that I pushed away when I felt rejected as a child, when I felt like my opinion or what I had to say didn't matter. And I felt all these, uh, these, kind of negative, dysfunctional things. And I pushed them down, but of course they didn't die. They just stayed buried and they grew underneath the surface. And so I finally hit a point where I I was stopped basically, and I went through a big challenging time where everything came back to the surface. And through healing that, I got on the most amazing, rewarding journey of my life, where it was self-development at first, and I completely transformed and was just amazed that you can actually work on yourself and actually make these problems disappear or turn around completely. And then that evolved into spiritual development, and it was taken to a new level. I got into the energy work, and so I'm really glad, because I went through a lot of challenges, but those were necessary at the
Oh
time.
yeah.
They turned me toward a path that I would have never known existed had I kept going down that route. And so, I can totally relate to everything that you just talked about, and I think it's common on the spiritual journey. And a lot of people who are listening and watching have probably experienced that, and they may be at different stages. So
Yeah.
some people may be going through the mess right now where they don't know which way is up, and they're feeling uncomfortable just sitting in peace and quiet with themselves. And I too have reached that point where now, being able to sit in silence, I could do the same thing. I could look at the stars or just look at the ocean for hours at a time and be totally content. I know that if for any reason I was jailed and I had to go into solitary confinement,
Got
it would,
enough in here.
yeah, because there are endless concepts I can explore. There are endless worlds that I can, when I would come out, my understanding of life and the universe and myself would be magnified.
Yeah.
I'd probably be a better person, better version of myself coming out than I was going in, simply because that introspection is just so valuable to me now, and there's so much joy in it. So I understand completely everything that you were talking about.
And so much of that comes from that understanding of self, and that going through that space of getting to know yourself, of beginning to understand yourself, allowing yourself to see and receive yourself, to accept yourself, then to learn to love yourself and or like yourself, then to learn to love yourself, and then you come into that space of believing in yourself, then trusting in yourself, and then you get to this space where you just know who you are. And it's not about, like you say, going through years of meditation or doing this every day or all of these practices. It's simply about becoming aware of yourself and acknowledging the gifts and the knowing that you already have inside of you, and it can bring you to some really,
Yeah.
really beautiful and profound spaces.
Yeah, that's why one of the things that I'm really excited about is when we get to the topic eventually of using it. You're already getting and receiving telepathic messages on a regular basis, but we become so trapped in these belief systems that things like that aren't possible, that it's just flying right by, and we're missing it.
What was
And
that thought? Oh, let that go.
yeah,
And
and knowing how to see it when it happens, how to pay attention to it, how to get into the right space for it to manifest naturally. And one of the biggest things that is difficult for a lot of people, I know it was for me, is to stop thinking and stop trying.
just be,
Because
yeah.
yeah, when you bring that logical mind in, it just closes off so many of your abilities. But if you can bring yourself into a space that is like the savant said, you bring yourself into a space where the ideas can just come in, where the communication can come in. It's there already,
Yeah.
and you already have the abilities. So there's no trying, because trying is akin to, again, thinking that you need to manipulate something that is not already you. And as soon as you buy into that, it just starts closing down your perspective into these limited forms that we've imagined ourselves to be.
Yeah, yeah. It sort of makes you think like, yeah, I've got to connect into something external to me as opposed to just, I'm just listening to myself.
Right.
I
Yeah.
was saying to someone the other day, someone had said, and they're like, oh, it's sort of like using your intuition. And they got stuck on the word. And I'm like, yes, I love that. Intuition.
Yeah.
Tuition is our knowing, it's knowledge. We go to school to get tuition, we go to university, we go to wherever we want to go to get specific knowledge and education, and that tuition and intuition, listening to yourself, that those telepathic messages, the messages from yourself, from other and sort of energy spaces. It's all around that intuition, that inner knowing, that inner learning. And we have access to it all the time because it is within us. So we can just sort of learn whatever we want to learn whenever we want to learn it. We don't have to go to the university and go, okay, what am I going to learn about me today? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm in me. What am I going to learn about me today? And we do have access to all of those things. So yeah, it will be cool when we get there, and because there's so many different ways and different aspects in which we can look at those things, and it's just exciting. It's just
Yeah. And
exciting.
a lot of us have just become so disconnected from our inner senses and our body, and have forgotten that our bodies are infinitely intelligent and will tell us things, and are telling us things ongoingly, but we're not tuned into it.
No.
And so even when it comes to food choices, or I remember when I used to drink alcohol, I don't anymore, but when I used to drink alcohol, I started paying attention to my body. And as I was playing with the idea to stop drinking, because I realized that for me, I'm a guy who likes to do a lot of things. I love exploring and accomplishing things and researching things. Uh, and but when I would a few beers, then all of my productivity would go out the window, and so I'd have things that I wanted to do that just started piling up. And so
Yeah.
for me, it was more of a practical thing because I wasn't really accomplishing the things I
What
wanted to
you
accomplish.
wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kicking back too much and just laying back and enjoying myself, and there's nothing wrong with that. But now I do it in an intentional way where maybe it's not through alcohol, but it's in those quiet moments, and it's in these other things that I feel really enriches my experience of life. But I found as I was preparing to stop drinking that when I would really become aware of how my body felt, when I'd go into the grocery store and I'd be like, well, yeah, tonight I'll grab a couple of beers, and I go down the alcohol aisle, I realized that my gut and my heart and my solar plexus were actually constricting. They were like the closer I moved to the alcohol,
Yeah.
the the stronger that feeling got. And I imagined it was there before, but I wasn't realizing it because
Aware of it.
I never thought about it before. I would just pick up a beer and just walk out. But I realized that when I moved closer to things that my body didn't really want anymore, I would have this feeling inside saying, no, don't do that. Um, and I started paying attention to it, and I realized it with other things. So if I could take an orange, for instance, and I take some kind of processed food like I don't know, a bag of cookies, and I put the orange next to my heart, it'll give me a totally different feeling than if I take the cookies and put them next to my heart,
Yeah.
or something else, or put it, you know, your body is always sending you these messages, but we become so tuned out and numb to them
Yeah.
that they just pass right by, just like the telepathic communication.
Yeah.
We're not even realizing that it's going on all the time.
And it's one of those things too, I've always said to my mum, or to anyone, if I've ever heard someone say common sense, I'm like, it's not common sense, because there is nothing common about it. Like, if it was common, I'd love it, but it's not. It's sense,
Yeah.
and a lot of people don't have it. And I was talking, it's something ever since I was sort of a kid, it's always been one of those things. I just don't agree with that. It's not common sense. Like, it's sense. But we didn't used to be so busy. We didn't used to have our
Oh, yeah.
phones and the TVs and the radio. If we were going from one place to another, we may have been walking, we wouldn't have just taken the car straight away. And so we would have walked, and we'd have those times to process our thoughts when we got home from work or doing that which we were doing. And for women, they may not have been at work in different generations, but they'd have those times to think. And so we'd be more observant because we had more time to be more observant, to be more aware in ourselves. Whereas now, if we get 2 minutes to ourselves, people are so often just straight on their phone and checking something and looking at this or looking at that, that there's not really that opportunity for sense to come in, for us to feel into our senses. What are we hearing? What are we hearing from externally? What are we hearing internally? What are we feeling physically in our bodies, physically touching? What are we feeling in our emotions? We turned off so many of our senses because we've become so distracted and so overloaded with so much external shit. It's just constant. And so we've turned off so much of our sense and our awareness of ourselves through that. And it's not like it's even turning on some magical state of being in that. It's just about turning on or stopping distracting yourself and just being present to what's actually taking place and what you are aware of. And just that in itself, I mean, that literally, if people never did anything else, if they never meditated, if they never did anything, if it just became aware of their thoughts and became aware of what's going on, that can change your life profoundly. So it's cool.
I mean, we could go on forever about these
topics. I was just about to say there's so many things that we could go on to.
Yeah, everything you bring up just shines a light on something important that I'm thinking about. I'm like, oh man, we got to go into this, but I know that this is meant to be just an introductory course. So I don't want to be a part of that overwhelm.
It's a true introduction because it's exactly what we do. We go from here to here.
Yeah. Right.
And that's just how we are. So it's good for people
I had friends over, and we were talking about some things, and they did something that they may have regretted. They asked me a question about this topic that they didn't understand, and boy, when that opened the floodgates, and I just started giving it to them, and I started bringing in ideas from here and here, and I'd gone on for a while, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna stop because I don't want to just overwhelm you with all this information. And one of my friends said, well, no, it's okay, I understand you want to talk. I said, no, you don't understand. I could probably talk straight for a month. I could just talk. It will never stop if I don't stop myself, because there are infinite routes to take on these ideas, and each idea connects to everything else. So each idea goes to something else. And if I don't stop myself, then I won't stop.
Yeah, I know that one. I know that one very, very well. It's a joy though. It is a joy, but it's also, you can just go and go and go and go and go. And also it's one of those things that sometimes people haven't experienced certain things before. You might be discussing a concept with somebody, or we could be discussing something, and for us it's sort of second nature, it's natural, and it's as simple and as fluid as our language, and it's something that we don't question. Whereas for some people, just one of the concepts we've discussed might be completely new, a complete mind blow. Wow, I never thought about that. And so they might still be in that space of processing that and trying to understand that. And then we can go into different depths, and they're like, hang on, I'm still looking at the boat that I'm about to get on. Not like, what's going on? How did you get to that island? And when did you go to that one? And where I missed that island altogether. Like, I'm still looking at the boat. And it's sort of like that sort of thing. And so, and it's allowing that time for integration. It's allowing that time for receivership. It's allowing that time for understanding. And I think that's something, we will together come together and find a space of, I know it's something I'm to do, shortening and delivering, but also explaining things so that they can be received and not to, so that everyone we don't overload everyone, and because we do just go from one subject to the next, and I just get so excited. I'm like, oh, we'll finish this and then we'll just keep chatting for the rest of the day. Well, on that note, then what we'll do is we will bid everyone farewell and a wonderful day, and I'll start and then you can say your goodbye. So thank you, and to everybody for joining us today and for watching. If there's anything you'd like to find out, and if you've got concepts as well that you would like to be explored, if you've got things going on in your life or you're seeing happening regularly or a lot around you and you're experiencing a lot, send us a message. You can message me at support@translatingtruth.com or on the Facebook. No worries at all. But thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day ahead and a wonderful weekend. And yeah, I'll hand you over to Harold to say farewell also. So thank you very much, guys, and see you soon.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Rebecca, for having me on. I always love these conversations and look forward and am excited to have many more and explore many more worlds with you. And I know a lot of good will come out of it for us and for all those who are listening. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Harold. Awesome. Bye.
To dive deep within my own mind and to trust you into it.